Hi, this is Dave.
This is Tara.
And this is Adam, and you're listening to People Also Watched.
We're three industry insiders clinging on to the lower rungs of the Hollywood ladder, and we love examining movies.
Every month, studios release big-budget features, and for every one of those, there are a ton of lesser-known movies you just might love.
So, as we cling here to the bottom of this career ladder, we're going to watch big-budget movies, but we're also going to introduce you to an older, nearly forgotten movie that people also watched.
But today, we're doing something a little different and special. We're not just going to talk about a movie. We're going to talk to two people who made the movie we're talking about. What?
Woo!
And the movie we're talking about is called Eight Found Dead, produced and written by Jonathan Buchanan and produced and directed by Travis Greene, who happened to also be our guest tonight.
Yes, sir. Jonathan has been a writer most of his life, who's written poetry, short stories, a novel, and stand-up. As a songwriter, he's written and recorded dozens of songs about quirky characters with a propensity for murder. He's written screenplays since 2000, and Eight Found Dead is his first produced movie.
And Travis Greene is a director, producer, cinematographer, editor, and sound designer. What doesn't he do? His movies skew towards the absurd and subversive, using unorthodox storytelling and offbeat characters, as well as the power of cinema to exemplify and elevate the human experience. He also works in reality TV, which contradicts everything I just said. Please welcome Travis Greene and Jonathan Buchanan.
Yay! Yay! Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us here.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so before we start, I do want to ask this before we start. From that open, between the three of us, do you know which two are usually in front of the camera or on stage and which one is usually not? Could you tell? Or did we... Okay, I just
No
wanted
idea.
to see. I thought I did good too.
Dave, stop fishing. Dave, stop fishing.
I have inklings.
Okay, so before we start, we usually have one of us give the log line of the movie. I'm notoriously bad at it with log lines. Giving log lines that sound like a third grader giving a book report. So I'm going to throw to Tara for the log line to Eight Found Dead.
Okay. So I would say this movie's about math. No, it's not. It's not about math. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I would say
It was a little bit.
a group of friends embark on a trip to the desert where they're supposed to unwind and relax, only to find the Airbnb that they have rented. Someone else is there, and those someone else's might have some things up their sleeves. Shall we say that? And it involves math.
Yes. And it involves that. Very good.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Brilliantly
How many
done.
times have you guys been giving the log line the last, 6 months to various people? Like, has it been exhausting?
We're a well-oiled machine, right, John?
Yeah, I still gave it wrong the other day. But yeah, we've done it, seems like hundreds of times.
It's such a simple simple concept that we made more complex.
That's
I
the
don't
part
know,
about
man.
doing the log lines.
Yeah. Summarizing a whole movie in like a sentence or two is not a simple thing.
No.
It is not. I can attest to that.
No.
Yeah. Yes, Dave. Thank you for that.
Especially a movie like that,
You're
what
welcome.
you guys made, which was A, so much fun, but B, also unconventional in its delivery of the material, right? Like, I'm not going to give anything away, I think, by saying this, but it jumps around in time quite a bit, right? So to try and, get that across, which, I mean, I guess you don't need to give away the time jumping, but at the same time, like how do you tell which is the focus of which story? You know what I mean? Like, that's got to be really difficult.
It was really fun. And John, you presented it to me that way.
Yeah, basically I wrote, there's 4 couples, and then there is this gal whose mom owns the Airbnb. Each of them have a timeline, and there's really 4 timelines. And I just put them on 3x5 cards in different colors and kind of shuffled this deck and showed it to Travis and just presented we start with the cleaning person, and then we have this first couple and go to the second couple. And then we go to the whole way to the end with the cops that are investigating this massacre. And so as I showed him the different colored cards, he got it. Like, oh, that'll be a cool way to edit around. And we came up with some cool devices, people going in and out of doors and things to make these fun transitions.
Go ahead,
I
Dave.
just wanted to say, speaking of spoilers, I think the biggest spoiler is in the title, 8 Found Dead. So you do know going into this movie that 8 people are going to be found dead. Which I thought, like, while I was watching it, it was a lot of fun. As Taro said about doing the math, I found myself going, okay, 2 people are dead. Who else is going to go down?
It was a fun device. Like, there is a certain
yes.
fun in that device of like, okay, wait a second. And you keep, like, there is a point in the middle where you're like, hold on, how is this going to get to 8? Like, that's like, I think that's some of the fun of it. Because you're like, wait a second. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of think you're at the end of the story and you're like, but there's just not enough.
Yeah.
Initially, if that guy trips and falls on the axe, there's still not enough dead people.
Initially, it was started out as a working title called Found Dead. And I asked Jonathan, I was like, that's a nice working title. It's pretty sweet. Maybe we could go with that. But I wanted to know kind of the origin of that. And he's like, well, I kind of pulled it from what you would see in a newspaper article or a Yahoo News link of, 4 found dead on the side of the road or in a trailer. And I said, well, at the time we didn't have a lot of cast, but I asked if we could put a numerical value at the top of that so that you would have that kind of, you could deploy that ploy or that tactic or strategy to kind of keep the audience guessing.
I think we should back up a little bit just real quick. Is like, how do you guys know each other? Have you worked together before? Sort of like maybe the origins of this movie. And I also know, just because I know Jonathan, is you guys also shot this during COVID, correct?
Oh.
Which was scary in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that was weird. Travis and we met about 16 years ago through a mutual friend. I met Travis at his parents' house, at his studio, where he recorded a band I was in. He recorded, I think that the first thing he did was that 3-song EP thing.
Dead by Dawn. Deaf
by Dawn?
Deaf by Dawn.
Yeah, that was Bergie's thing. I was probably just hanging out then. I wasn't even in that.
But you were like part of his entourage, and I was like, that's the coolest guy I've ever seen. He had such a great style. This is 2000.
It's funny, Jonathan. Looking at you, I'm like, that's a guy in an entourage. I'm like, that's where you belong.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got a look. I was recording him, and we spent 3 months alone in my recording studio, kind of fine-tuning and building this album, getting to know each other and shooting the breeze, talking music, life, movies. Remember Heavy Metal Parking Lot, John?
Oh yeah, of course.
So we would, turn each other on to different things. And then John was just kind of throughout the years. I've been in television since 2000. I've been making films since 2010. And John's always been either on my sets working in art or props, and also kind of one of my biggest sounding boards, the guy that'll give me the real deal truth as to what he feels about like what I'm producing and making. And I've always kind of encouraged him to keep, like, he's one of the most brilliant songwriters I know, and I knew that would kind of parlay its way into storytelling, because a lot of his content in music, his songs are great stories, and that really kind of was a perfect fit for him to write horror, because he writes a lot of murder ballads or songs about death and murder. If you've heard the Holy Angel Fire or Campfire cassettes.
I don't think I've ever heard that, and I would agree, Jonathan. You are at the forefront of murder ballads. So.
Yeah, it's the only good thing to write about. Everything else
it's
is
also
kind
a
of
really
boring.
specific niche. You know what I mean?
But,
like that's not capitalize upon that.
I guess, yeah. But then we did it, like you said, we did it during COVID, which I have right now. Thanks. But we did it during COVID, which was actually perfect because everyone was available. We got the best cast. We got the best DP. We got a killer crew, makeup, gaffer.
We were able to rehearse.
We were able to rehearse in backyards. Everybody was free and itching to do something. And so, we followed protocols and we masked up and distanced and everything we could to make it legit and follow the rules. But everyone was just excited to be together and making something after such a long, shitty time.
Yeah,
it was good.
it took a pandemic for us to have the opportunity to work with some of these actors, specifically Nancy Linehan Charles, who's in the film. I've wanted to work with her for a decade, and I knew she wasn't doing much because everything was shut down. So I reached out and she said she's game. And that's what a lot of people, that kind of fervor, or, not only were they available, but they were itching to do something. So there was a great energy and urgency on set.
Yeah,
Yeah, I still haven't left my basement since COVID, so I understand. I think that's really.
Yeah,
I
talk
get
to
it.
us about the filming process, because like you've mentioned already, there were 4 different couples. So is it a process of like, okay, we're gonna take the cops and we're gonna shoot them out in like however many days, and then we're gonna bring in and of course obviously there are other people who are in the movie for extended periods of time, but like what was the filming process like?
Well, it was arduous and it was fast paced and it was chaotic, and we shot the film. We shot 63 pages in 9 days,
Wow.
7 principal days, and then we brought the cops back in after those first 7 principal days. We were overly ambitious. I was overly ambitious because I had shot 48-hour films before, so I thought, oh, I'll just rush through it. I've got, for 5 months I was storyboarding with a jib or crane to just kind of shoot everything, because I had shot my previous short film on a jib and was able to motor through 10 pages in 4 hours. Especially add on top of that all the rehearsing and kind of workshopping with the script that we were doing. We felt pretty confident. It was ambitious, but we could do it. It was a lofty task. It was my first feature, so I was not accustomed to the wave of problems that comes with feature filmmaking day after day after day. So we did kind of block group shooting, or blocked shooting, which is just shooting out a scene, an area of the house, 1 or 2 days, and then moving on. And we were able to stagger everyone's schedule. So it was kind of chaotic for John and I. You want to talk about that, about like kind of, since it is so nonlinear, having to have the wherewithal where you are when you are.
Yeah, because I mean, we couldn't necessarily like, it wasn't like let's shoot out the living room and then we'll never be in the living room again. We couldn't have the actors at our beck and call that easily, so we kept having to, now we're in the dining room again, but it's during the first couple, so the alcohol level has to be a certain way. Just there was little hints that had to be like, ugh, a lot of continuity problems. And then we were living at the house, and just the paper towel roll, like, just quit using the paper towels, crew. I have to keep putting a new one in because it looks stupid, and everyone's gonna know it was my fault that the continuity sucked. So like, it was just it was all the normal problems, but times 10, and just with less people to deal with it. So, but we tried to. This continuity is pretty good.
Throughout the
Pretty good.
process, what was one of the most difficult things to have to deal with while trying to shoot in order, an out of order movie? I mean, because you speak of the continuity being a challenge. What else was there that you were facing up against that just? Sorry, my dog just went nuts. That just kind of had you going, oh, why did we start this film? That's a terrible way of phrasing it, but that's the way I'm phrasing it.
Dave, I ask myself that every day while making this thing. The toughest task for me was working with makeup, in the sense that since we were doing block shooting, if I wanted to shoot in a living room, I had to shoot everything that happened in that living room. And that meant from the guest's arrival to a murder scene. So within that day, those actors had to be in one set of wardrobe and then go have makeup and prosthetics applied. And there was days where we went long and we had to save or shelve that day, the effect or the stunt work to happen the following day. So one of our actresses, Ali Trasher, she had to have makeup applied and reapplied and taken off and reapplied multiple times, and that could be frustrating. What about for you, John?
Oh man, I
Paper
remember
towels?
the wind. Remember at night, it was super windy at night, and I'm standing out there, and we're all holding these flags and stuff, and it's like, geez, this is
Holding down
just,
lights, right?
yeah. You just don't think of like the wind. I don't know, because
40-mile-an-hour desert wind.
yeah, you only have so many sandbags, and so you just had to go stand on that thing so it doesn't fall over and kill the actor.
It gets cold at night, even though we shot it in summer.
Where did you
It
guys
gets
shoot
super
it?
cold at night in
Yeah.
the desert.
Oh yeah, that place is
29
windy as all
Palms.
get out. That sucks.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Just when you think you've gotten there, you haven't. You got to keep going 45 more minutes.
I mean, you guys, considering, Travis, this was your first feature, and Jonathan, this is your first produced script. Congratulations to both of you, because that's no easy task.
Yes, yes.
Jonathan, I was curious, what
Thanks.
was your inspiration to write the script? Like, what did you see, or what ticked that box in your head to go, like, I got to write this?
What murder ballad
What-
did you have in mind?
Yeah.
What terrible Airbnb experience did you have?
And did you leave a badass review?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
oh man, no, I don't leave reviews anymore. I don't know, I'll tell you that story later. But Travis knows where the story came from. He'll tell you.
I lived in the ranch for 4 months prior, and I had a spooky experience while staying there by myself with my little dog Felix. And I thought, wow, this is terrifying to be alone, isolating from friends and family in Los Angeles who are also isolating. I was isolating on top of isolating, and it felt very isolating. And when you're alone in the country, like, big fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, big fan of The Hills Have Eyes, and the country's the scariest. And I had an experience while I was up there where I had just arrived to the ranch. I had unpacked my vehicle, kind of gotten the lay of the land, put on a record player, poured myself some scotch, rolled a doobie, and then walked out to the driveway to stargaze, because this is Wonder Valley of 29 Palms. It's the artsier district of 29 Palms. And I was just, kind of praying to the aliens to come and capture me. And all of a sudden, faintly in the background, I hear music playing, and I got terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, someone's in the house. Someone is watching me. And then I remembered, oh, I'm just high and drunk. I put that record on. And I called up John and I said, can you write a story about this? He's like, I'm on it.
That's an amazing origin story. I love that.
But to answer Tara's question, I think Jonathan wrote this story in 2010 or 11 in a little ditty called Wolves.
Oh yeah, sort of. Yeah, Wolves was like a home invasion, Straw Dogs-esque song. So it's related to that a little bit. But this is more inverse home invasion, where the bad guys are already in the house.
Yeah. They're
which is my
kind of
my
squatting
favorite.
there as Airbnb intruders.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
So I guess, do you guys want to give us sort of like I guess we could talk about I mean, definitely what Travis, what you just said, The Hills Have Eyes and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, yes, that is clear to me in the filming of it and sort of the pacing and the build that you're sort of that these two people that are there are creepy as get out from the beginning, right? I think you're they're gonna do something, and you're just sort of waiting to figure out, which I think is kind of fun, right? Because it's it is that build of okay, this is gonna go wrong. I just don't know how yet.
That was the beauty of John's script. He's like, I'm revealing that everyone's dead. I go, that's so meta. That's so great. And he's like, it's not about we're all gonna die, right? So who survives was kind of his motto.
Yeah. And as far as spoilers go, I mean, if you watch the trailer, that's the spoiler. If you talk too much about it, I think most everything is pretty obvious pretty fast. So we're not
Well,
paranoid about it or anything.
We leaned into it.
Yeah, we really did lean into it. At one point, I think initially there was a thought in my head of like, oh, I'm clever. What if it was a whodunit and you didn't know? It was more of a surprise, but it was like at some point that became impossible. It was like, fuck it, man. Let's let's see it. Let's just see it.
What in putting this all together, when did you really start the process, and how many drafts did you go through until you started shooting?
Oh man.
I always like to ask this question.
Gosh, I don't have a good timeline for that. I feel like we got together in the summer. Right?
It started. John was helping produce another feature idea in May of 2020.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Throughout the pandemic, Jonathan and I would meet at Priscilla's coffee shop
Really?
in Toluca Lake.
Sorry.
There you
Yeah,
All
shout
the
out to
time.
Priscilla's. And we would just kind of pal around and be like, what's life? Where are we going? I don't know. Let's have fun. You want to write? I'm in an acting class. I'm making music videos. Cool. Let's just talk about the arts, even though we had no way or nowhere to present and exhibit whatever we were creating. But John, I brought him on to produce this feature idea that didn't go anywhere. We couldn't make it work. And I was kind of stumped, but I did in July of 2020 sell my house and said to John, I've got money to not what we were trying to do with that other film. That's out of our league. But can you write something small and contained with this? And he was like, give me a minute. And I think he went away for the summer, came back in August. We revisited it. And I read the first draft and was blown away. Like the way that John presented the script, he gave me the script, I read it, and then at Priscilla's, when we met up to talk about it and give notes, he also showed up with 3x5 color-coded index cards. And he was like, I'm going to do a dog and pony show for you. And he would just hold up each scene, and being that they were color-coded with each character or each couple and their journey throughout the film, I was easily able to digest what he was cooking. And I have a nonlinear brain, being that I'm an editor by trade. And so I was able to easily kind of see his vision and decipher what he was going for, while also additionally helping with, entrances and exits. What I mean by that is like getting into a scene late, getting out early, using doors, windows, cupboards to kind of be our transitional devices. And I think you only went through like 2-3 versions, maybe, or did you go through 9? Did you go through 9 versions?
I was like, yeah, I remember a version 10. It was a lot. We did the first table read on
January 1st.
January
2nd.
1st.
Because January 1st
like
you
the
had
day
something
out,
happen.
I had cited incident. But yeah, but I mean, I wrote right up till the end. I mean, there was a time on set in 29 Palms where I had 15 pages cut up at the fireplace, and there was no way we could shoot 15 pages. It was insane. So I had to figure it out and make it 5. So I mean, there was moments where I'm still like, oh gosh, we're shooting this in an hour. What are we gonna do? Or an actor would last minute be like,
why am I doing this?
And you're like, well, you're doing it because that's what it says to do. But that's not what my character would do. If your
You've
character
had 6
does
months.
that thing, yeah. If your character does this, then that's what your character would do.
And you had 6 months to tell us you had a problem with it before the night of shooting.
Are you right?
Actors, am I right?
Don't get me started.
You are.
They were
right.
great.
You're right.
But yeah.
So
yeah.
when Jonathan, when Travis approached you and said small and contained, what are some of the things you think about to try and keep something small and contained? Because any kind of film is going to be an endeavor.
Well, I mean, small and contained is just, I knew we had primarily one location. And I knew that anything outside of that initial location was going to be sort of cherry on top or the gravy. We got really lucky. We got to expand the story outside of the one house, but just started with that. You had to deal with conversation, something that's engaging and tension building, something that keeps us on edge and pushes people's buttons, but isn't so insane that the couples leave. They have to still want to feel safe enough and have a big enough ego to still want to fight for their place. So, I looked at one of my favorite movies is Tape. That's three people in one motel room. They never leave, and that's one of the best movies ever. And then Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? They leave the house, they go outside, and they go to a bar, but they're basically in one space, and it's all just talking. So I just kind of use that as
It's interesting
Sure.
because
my parameters.
When you talk about like self-contained space, you're living with these characters, right? Like you get to intimately know them and see them in all their different forms and manifestations. And I think that's one of the things that's really fun about your guys' script is you're like, by the end of it, you're like, I know who Sam is. I get it. And that's what's kind of the really fun about the setting and the story itself.
Yeah, I think if we were doing like a normal cabin in the woods or a campground massacre, Sam would have been a perfect early victim. Oh, she's stuck up, she's an influencer, and we whack her and nobody gives a shit. But because we get to stick around and we get to know her and we see her humanity, her death is actually sad, and we try to get to know all of our characters like that.
I think you would have gone full tilt with like how unbearable she could be if it was just another kids going out to a cabin in the woods. And we wanted to root this thing in reality and introduce, which is kind of controversial, and I read a lot of the reviews. You can find me on Letterboxd. It's kind of controversial. Why would you bring that? There's a certain element in Sam's story that we brought in kind of not last minute, but kind of John heard me pitch it and he goes, no, I'm going to take that and run with it, and he went way into it. And it was my favorite part of the film when she's confronted with this secret, but it's actually from my life. It's a lot of these stories, a lot of these characters, a lot of their choices, a lot of their mannerisms are people that I know in my life. That situation, I had a friend, take friends out to dinner to announce this big secret, and it turned out to be that, and that was a real shock. And so I thought, that'd be cool to kind of give a little gravitas or weight to elevate this from just kind of another sappy slasher film.
I think that choice was really great, because when that happened, all of a sudden I went like, oh, this is a real story. You know what I mean? I think there's something about like there's caricatures and then there's people. So I think it's like when you give a person who's like a caricature of like an influencer, right? Like you're like, oh, but she's a person because she has like a real, like she could grasp onto it. And as an actor, that's a gift too. But there is a theater sort of vibe to this, and it's funny that Jonathan said Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, because like they're definitely a George and Martha, like the most like fucked in the head version, but like they're very much like I see absolute like versions of that. And there's also something that like whether or not you wanted to like whether this was purposeful or not, but like Airbnb and all these stories of like these horror stories, like there's this currently there's this guy in Brentwood who's like there's a person who like won't leave his house, and because like he basically he had an illegal addition and she figured it out and now she won't leave and he has no recourse. Have you guys read this story first of all? Oh my God.
No.
I've heard about it. I haven't read
Anyways,
it, but I heard about it.
He has this woman who came for like the week and wouldn't leave, and then he tried to evict her, and she found out that like part of the place she was staying was like illegally, there was no permits for it, so she stayed, and the state and the city are like, it's illegal, you can't make her leave, and so she's lived there for like 300 days or something crazy.
Oh man,
it's crazy. Anyways, the point is like this also lightly deals with Airbnb and how you get like so screwed with Airbnbs before, which we've all had one or two where you're like, this sucks, and like there's no recourse, and Airbnb doesn't help you, and like Airbnb did not help any of these people. and also the like it was really well set up, and like if you want to hate Airbnb or like the worst thing that could happen, this is a great version of it.
Thank you. How difficult is it to just kind of sometimes get
Oh, yeah.
into the property? You know, what's behind the rock out in the field, and you gotta run past the dog and jump.
Right,
There's
or,
that
like,
moment
at-
where
You have to climb
one
into a
of your
clown
characters
car.
is like digging through rocks looking for a key, and I'm like, oh, I relate to that.
Yeah, we've done that. So do you what else, like so like do you want to talk about like where is this movie? Like where can we find it? Like what was your path on like the festival circuit? How's your experience been?
Yes.
I mean, I know that like England tried to kill Jonathan by giving him COVID, but otherwise.
Well, we Travis submitted the film. You want the whole trajectory? Travis submitted the film to Screamfest last September? August?
End of August. End of August.
Yeah.
And we got in, which was a blessing, but then suddenly we had to finish it. So Travis had to do a ton of work over the next 2 months to get it ready for that.
We submitted a rough cut because we've been in edit for 11 months. The photography took 9-ish days plus 6 days for pickups over the next 6 months, and in concert with that, the edit was already happening. And around May of 2022, a couple of my actors were like, hey man, spooky season's coming up, when are we going to see the film? And I'm like, 2023, just relax. All right, everyone relax. But then I thought, if I didn't have that fire lit under my butt, we wouldn't get stuff done, you know. And Jonathan and I have talked about that before, of if you don't have deadlines, if you don't set deadlines, we won't get anything done. So John's really good about, like, you know, bookkeeping and keeping us on schedule and on track. He's always done that for his bands, you know, like being the producer or the manager. And so he's just been kind of stalwart and kind of like my right hand. And as far as, like, as we say, pushing the boulder up the hill, you need a partner. And he's all, when one's down, the other's up, and we got this. This is the worst thing ever. No, we stay in solution-based thinking. And when we got to August, after 2 months of hardcore editing with Jonathan and I, like right next to each other, kind of like going back to basics, how we made that album back in 2008, it was very comfortable and it was very familiar. And we were starting to see the movie, right? The movie was speaking to us in the edit. Like, the script was great, and what you see on screen is 95% all Jonathan's words, and then I added some, you know, directing touches and some sound design, and the acting is phenomenal, and camera work by Ryan Valdez is gorgeous and beautiful, and Herculean task that he took on. But in September, we submitted the rough cut, and they go, we love it, it's great. And I've never had that experience where someone's seen a rough cut that's not like my family saying it's great, we'll take it. And we're elated for about 5 minutes, and then we're like, oh F, we have to finish this. And we have popular music in there, we have unlicensed music in there. My composer, whom I had hired, I told him, I have a deadline. We got into a festival. That's great, he says. When do you need these cues? 22 of them. I said, in 3 weeks. He's like, that's not possible. So I had to put my recording engineer, musician hat on and just kind of like create an original soundtrack and score in 6 days with Jonathan producing it. So the roles are kind of reversed there. And then it gets accepted into Screamfest, finished, delivered. We won't go into color correction because that Jonathan gets agita talking about color correction. And it plays for a theater, 300-person theater. It was a really fun, exhilarating screening. And then we find out we win Screamfest. That was like mind-blowing.
Yeah.
We won Best Picture, Best Director. And that opened up kind of like taking meetings, or, you know, having interest, a little more interest than just what we were used to. And we we got distribution through Dark Sky Films, who put the film out. They put the film through a couple more festivals earlier this year, and then they released it theatrically in September. And I think it's available here in the States and in Canada. It'll be available in the UK October 23rd, digitally. And we have a physical release. Do you know what date that is?
24th, October 24th. I'm going to do a signing in Burbank at Dark Delicacies on
Ooh.
November 5th. And Travis, you showed me, you posted pictures like the Netherlands and
Oh yeah, just today, October 12th, it was released in the Netherlands and in Luxembourg. That did you see that one sheet?
yeah, so weird.
That's Luxembourg's version of the film. So that's
nice.
Yeah, and then a Dutch friend said, "Look what I found," and I'm like, "Holy crap, it's available
right? Like that?
in the Netherlands."
So yeah, peek around. It's out there.
That's right.
Augustus Gloop called me and said that.
That's phenomenal, you guys. Congratulations. It's such a big deal.
That
Thanks,
is
Tara.
a big deal. And we can put links to any digital cuts or to the signings if you want in the podcast notes of the show.
Great.
Let me ask you something,
Awesome.
John.
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Go, Dave. Dave,
When the roles were reversed, were you like, "This is my moment," and did you use that moment?
When the
Fuck
roles
this
were
guy.
reversed. What part? When were the roles reversed?
You were producing the soundtrack, and
Oh, he's being very modest about that. He created the stuff and then would plug it into the movie, and I would come over with my little salty crew beers, and he'd play them, and I'd go, "That sounds good," or maybe I would be like, maybe a little lower. That's my produced. I mean, I didn't produce that. Come on.
But he did produce. Okay, so here's the role reversal. Really, writing. Jonathan is very amenable and collaborative when it comes to taking notes. He's got thick skin, and we're really nice but honest with each other. And so I was giving him a slew of notes, and I was like, I'm a stickler with names, and I wanted Richard and Liz because that's Richard Burton and Liz Taylor from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I wanted Ricky, who's one of my dear friends, played by Eddie Acosta. He's a Cuban guy, so you got to have Ricky Ricardo. Carrie, redhead, De Palma, Carrie. Sam and Dwayne, they were just like, whatever, they were whatever names. He's like, I'm just going with it. Fuck the names. But he was really kind with taking my notes and then elevating. And the role reversal happened when I was editing the film, because that's another form of writing. And he was able to kind of sit back and have that 30,000-foot view from the sky. And so he was really honest, brutally and blunt with his feedback on what was working, what sucked, what was like limp, what was like strong. And when it came to the score, where he changed my mind was he was like, put on The Thing. That has a nice rhythm and pulse. And I'm a big Carpenter fan. So I started exploring more, like looking in depth at Carpenter's score and his use of synths and that pulsing dread that just, when John was writing this and when we were editing it, we wanted to create what I stole from Christopher Nolan, which is the shepherd's tone, which is like this unrelenting rise of drama that never releases the tension. And that's what you get from seeing this simple story told in a complex way. It's always just when you think it's going to be resolved, nope, remember this story, here we go again. And so I wanted to kind of have what was a blessing with composing the music for the film for these heavy dialogue scenes was I knew the film so well, and I knew that I didn't want the score to step on John's words. So having that nice bed, and with him suggesting things like The Thing or The Fog or Escape from New York, I was able to like kind of like plant that nicely underneath the dialogue, so it keeps its lockstep with the tension in his dialogue.
That makes sense. And I could really sense that kind of, I call it kind of the 80s vibe in the music, which I love. I love that kind of tonal feel. I'm terrible with words, and I am a writer, so go figure. But love that. I love that feel of that music, where it's very atmospheric and driving its own way. I've never heard that. You call it a shepherd's tone. I've never
tone.
heard of that. That's really fascinating.
It's this whiz, this
Yeah.
this whine that never. It's like
Yeah. As soon as you started describing it, I was like, yeah, I know what that is. I just
Mhm. Dunkirk employed that.
I have just really one more question I want to ask that I desperately need to know, actually, because this movie ends with a hint towards the story continues.
Yes.
Do you have a little bit of what that entails in your mind? You don't even have to tell us, except that you should tell us. Maybe later on you can call me as I go to sleep and you can give me a little bedtime story of the continuing adventures of this couple. But do you have a sense of what could happen?
Yeah. I wrote the script. I wrote the prequel. It's called Eight More Dead. It takes place 30 years earlier. We get to see Richard and Liz meet. We get to see them create these characters. We get to see them play other characters. We get to see them take on roles and personas of people they've killed. It's more feral and sexier and bloodier, and it's pretty alarming. It's fun.
It sounds like a bigger
pretty
budget to
awesome.
me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got to be somebody else's money, that's for sure.
I'm broke.
Travis only has one house, and
I
he
was gonna
sold it
say,
to make
that's
the movie.
like that's
One
not
house, one
something we
movie.
glossed
That's
over.
the next movie.
Right.
Sell your house to make a movie. That is
Yeah.
commitment.
Yes.
I put it all on the line for this one,
That's
and it paid off. I haven't gotten paid, but like, hopefully one day, hopefully people see it and they like it. Really, like, if I don't make my money back, it doesn't matter. It's out in the
Yeah.
world. It's for the people. It's for Jonathan, to have a script, for Ryan to, our cinematographer. He's shot movies before, but it was really nice to just be with our friends and not really do this for money because we didn't know that it was going to go to a festival. We didn't know that we were going to get distribution. We didn't know that we were going to be on this podcast when making it. It was just something to do in
Are you
2021.
sure this was not the end goal? Weren't you like, you know what we need to be? We need to be
I
on
knew.
People Also Watch.
That's right.
And how can we do that? Let's make a movie.
Let's
make a
Jonathan,
movie.
get to the keyboard.
The bar was very high.
That's why I kept in close contact with Tara all these years. I'm like,
He's
I'm
like,
getting
one
on
day
one of
she'll
these
let me
damn
on one of her podcasts.
I put that little coda in there as a shock and a surprise to Jonathan because I'm prone to having a goof idea here or there. And he's always a good kind of litmus test or barometer as far as like, is it good taste? Is it bad taste? And he goes, I don't know, man. I kind of like it. I'm like, yeah, right. Like the original Friday ending where, Jason pops up and grabs the gal on the boat. And he's like, let's just roll with it, man. Like, and it's been a polarizing thing. Half the audience loves it. The other half are like, I don't know. You better make that film. So it's like another fire lit under our butts. We got to manifest it and make it come true. But I was going to say something about that, about the Jonathan liked it. And then when we got distribution, we had another opportunity to remove it and to pull it. And John said, I believe, and I don't think I'm paraphrasing here, Jonathan, but you said, look, man, that film won Screamfest as is. And it's like, it's a bold move. We had prided ourselves in the script of making bold choices and actors taking bold risks, and the edit being, it's a bold risk to show one of your protagonists who you stick with throughout the entire film, to show him dead at minute 30.
Yeah.
You don't get that from a lot of films.
Yeah, it was a tremendous film. It was a lot of fun to watch, especially now that it's in the spooky season. But it was incredible. I did really love... First of all, I loved... not first of all. I've been saying first of all a lot tonight.
First of all,
Um,
Dave.
I loved Liz, Roseanne Ramirez.
Limeres.
I will never pronounce that name right. But her portrayal of Liz I just found it so creepy and disturbing, and I feel bad for you because you must have nightmares at night because you had to work with her for 9 days, and not because she's a terrible person, but because that character is just like the warmest, creepiest mother ever.
She's like that in real life. She's not at all. She's the sweetest, funniest person. John, her words with her performance with John's words is K magnifique.
Yeah, it was great. When we were doing rehearsal, originally Richard had way more lines and way more of the creepy lines. And as we were doing rehearsals, I was like, well, Liz, why don't you say that? And I just throw her, why don't you try that? Travis was like, yeah, let's do that. And everything we gave her, she just turns it to gold. It's just so funny. And the juxtaposition of how sweet she is and how sweet she can sound, and then just saying this nasty shit was just really, it was awesome.
And we reversed the open. Initially, it was supposed to be Richard watching Jessie, who's the initial girl who's cleaning up the Airbnb as she's undressing. It was like going to be traditional older guy in the closet watching the young girl change. And then we were like, what if it's Liz, though? That makes it even more just kind of like, what?
Creepy.
Yeah, she's great.
And really, in real life, she is married to Tim Simic. So real life couple.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So as in real life, do they kill people?
Mm-hmm. With comedy.
Yeah, in real life, Tim's an improv teacher. And Laura Buckles, the Officer Miller, she's in his troupe. Rosie's in that
Slow
troupe.
Children at Play. We used to perform with them years ago.
Sorry?
Tara and I.
Yeah.
Oh,
nice.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Travis is in that. Yeah.
I was in the
Were you
troupe.
really?
I was in Slow Children at Play.
That's
and
crazy. We must have passed each other or something.
And
that's I was
played
never on the team, but we played we did shows with them. Like we would do different shows. This was a long time ago.
Okay.
I've known Laura Buckles, I think, since like 2003 or something. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so she's one of the longest running in the group. Tim started it, and then Rosie came along, I think in 2006 or 2007. And Rosie and I really connected in the group because she loves horror. So she was able to just like fall into this role immediately. She was just laughing it up.
Well,
is that offensive?
No, I was gonna say I was laughing it up, but then I thought, no, I need to. I was chilling it up, and then I just went into a spiral.
Lapping it up. She was laughing. Did
I'm sorry.
Did it sound like I said laughing? Lapping it up.
I like to talk in confusing circles.
This is true. We can confirm.
Are you me, Dave? My joke is I'm an editor by trade, but I have a hell of a time trying to tell a story.
Well, that's why you do out of linear storytelling. It's
I
like it. Yeah, I do it with the keyboard.
Well, I want to commend you guys because I think because I know Jonathan, like we're working in production, and I know he's an amazing prop master. And you said you're an editor, and I think there's something to be said for anybody listening. It's though we work every day in TV and film, it's something very different to do your own work, and like what a Herculean task it is. But also like when you are a professional, when you've done maybe something else you don't necessarily like, that's not your number one goal for a long time, you learn all these other valuable skills, which then when you do your own projects brings so much more to it. Like there's, just having done locations just gives me like such a perspective when I write that like, putting a half a scene in a closet and then a half a scene in a bathroom, it's like, okay, why are you know what I mean? Like there's just like all of a sudden you get much better at simple things that make the filmmaking process better. So just for anybody listening,
Yeah.
anything you do on set is not necessarily done in vain or for naught. And you guys, that's it's a big deal. Not everybody on set does what you guys do, which is taking your skills and making the thing you want to make.
As a prop master, I purposefully wrote out all clocks and watches. I was so excited. I was like, I don't have to deal with any of this time shit. And we show up on day one, and William Gabriel Greer is wearing a watch. And I'm like, oh, dude, we're not doing watches in this movie. And he's like, no, I want to wear this watch. I'm like, I don't what am I going to do? Travis is like, we'll never see the time. We'll never see the time. And I'm like, he's probably right, but it's my job to be paranoid about it. So then I have to continuity. What time is it? 6 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock. Oh,
Were you really resetting his watch?
I think I didn't. I had so many, remember those other little cardboard cards I had for all the different continuity things? Me and Hannah had our little flashcards.
The cups was the biggest thing with
the
liquid.
drinks.
Yeah.
There was a bottle of booze that gets drank throughout, and by the end it's empty and then used as a weapon. And it was very important to me. Like, no one's gonna notice, but I notice. And
yeah,
those are the details.
Right.
You can rewatch it and see.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, to speak to your point, Tara, like Jonathan went into this. How many feature scripts have you written, Jonathan?
Before this?
Yeah.
One. In 2000, I took a class in Chicago.
So it'd been 20 years, and you came back to write your first script. Let's just call it your first script, right?
Sure.
But it was important that Jonathan, he told me it was important to him that every scene had a beginning, middle, and end, and a purpose. And that was, for anyone listening, have motivated moments. Be going somewhere with what you're doing so that it feels purposeful and there's an intent, and it makes it, I think that the pace of this film and where it kind of propels to, that's why we wanted to do a prequel sequel, is we weren't done with these people. It's never over. They're schemers, so they're always trying to get out of situations. And I also call it like, it's a fucked up version of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. They're just playing house.
Tara, he just beat you on the log line.
Yeah, well, it's his movie. So it's his movie.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. I stand corrected.
But now I am mad. I'm like, of course it's Goldilocks. God.
Yes. And this axe is just.
I say that story's probably.
What were you to say, John?
Oh, the Winnie the Pooh people probably.
They're remaking it, yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably do that.
Oh, man.
Well, guys, this has been absolutely awesome. I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your movie. This has been so much fun. Congratulations again on making such an awesome film. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
At the end, what we like to do is we like to talk about what we're watching right now, just to give them a peek inside our twisted mind at what we enjoy. So Jonathan, what are you watching right now? What's something fun and interesting that's piqued your interest?
Man, right now I'm stuck at my parents' house with COVID, and they watch Rawhide and Everybody Loves Raymond all day. So I'm kind of stuck with that, though. Okay, Rawhide's interesting because it does have Clint Eastwood in it, which is super fascinating. He did there's 100+ episodes. But weirder than that, when I was in London, I saw Naked Attraction, or when I was in Manchester. That show is disturbing. It's just people analyzing each other's naked bodies.
I've never heard this.
Yeah. It's really great.
Did you watch it in the hotel?
Yeah.
Do
you see their naked bodies?
And I mean, I'm talking everything. Like let's say there's a dude out there, and they'll be like, oh, bring out 3 women, and they bring them out, and there's screens so you can't see anything, and then let's look at the bottom third, and then just from belly button down,
who would subject
there you go,
themselves?
everything well lit, and there's a host, this woman host is talking about it and just saying stuff that's really disgusting. It was insane.
But then they cut to the interviews where they're like, I'm doing this because I just don't meet the right person. I'm tired of the dating apps, and they try to pull on the heartstrings, and then they hard cut to their naked body.
Yeah,
And it's like,
This is on Max right now, and I keep thinking about watching it, but I'm afraid the next time I turn on Max, my wife will turn to me and go, "Are you watching Naked Attraction?" And then I'll have to go, "Yes, I am. Yes, I am."
Yeah, don't watch it.
Dave, how did they get away with that? With like the children controls, or like the like it's streaming
it's
just on
streaming
Max,
on
or do you have
Max.
to put
it
it in a?
just started like 4 weeks ago. It's like one of the top rated shows on Max, I think.
Oh my!
Wow.
I've totally missed this. Thank
Oh
God.
my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so awful.
What about you, Travis? What are you
What
watching?
about you, Travis?
Sorry,
No,
I
it's
didn't
good.
have a better answer.
I'll keep it. I'll keep it in the spirit. Every October 1st, I'll start with Halloween 1, go to 2, 3, 4, 5, skip over the Rob Zombie attempts, and H2O I like. I haven't seen what's the one in 2001
20? No, that's not 20.
with Busta Rhymes.
That's not H2O.
H2O's with LL Cool J.
Oh.
There's another Halloween, but on a more serious tip, over the weekend at Beyond Fest, I saw When Evil Lurks from an Argentinian filmmaker. Highly recommend that. Some really good kills. They do stuff with an axe that I wish I would have thought of. It's pretty messed up. And yeah, I'm that's it. Like Halloween's on in the background right now. Just I play it with the music or with the sound off, and it's just comforting.
All right, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, that tracks.
I think that I know a lot more about Travis than I ever needed to,
Yes.
and everything I needed to know about him.
Mm-mm.
God.
All right, Dave.
What about you, Tara? What?
Nope, already
Okay,
asked you,
I'll go.
Dave. Got to jump on the ball. Let's go.
Go, Dave.
Okay. Right now, I am loving Star Trek Lower Decks. It's the cartoon on Paramount. It's funny. It still feels like in the spirit of Star Trek, so I'm kind of loving it right now.
Nice.
What's it's Star Trek?
Lower
What?
Decks, and it kind of takes
Lower
place in the
Decks.
Next Generation era, and it's an animated kind of almost like Simpsons meets Star Trek.
It's about the lives of the people that make the Enterprise go.
It's all like the yeoman.
Okay,
I
that
don't even
sounds
know
fun.
what I don't know Navy terms, but yeoman sounds like it's a lower level crew
Fits.
person.